For as long as I've been alive, I've also been a gamer, and with that, I enjoy a variety of video games, whether we're talking about single-player games, multiplayer games, or various genres within those given types of video games, right? But it's not even necessarily just a thing of like, oh, the older I've gotten, the more I've started to prefer single-player games. Honestly, I've just been that way my whole life, even since I was 3 years old playing Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo. There's something about single-player games where you're alone, you're in your own world, no matter what system you're playing on, no matter what game you're playing in. You're transported to that world in a way that you just can't really achieve when you're playing multiplayer games or playing games with other people or playing games with multiplayer elements in mind. And today I have a massive stack of games that I would like to talk about that also just kind of tie into why I enjoy single-player games so much and, what about them, I guess, resonates with me or why they're so important to me. And again, these aren't like every game that have had a profound impact on me. These are just more or less the physical games I had on hand that are in a presentable or good condition enough to kind of show it off. And unfortunately, all my cartridge-based games, like, the games on Super Nintendo and N64 that I would have wanted to talk about are kind of buried in my closet at the moment. My setup's in shambles, so we're doing what we can here. But first things first, why don't we go ahead and start it with the game that started it all for me, basically, because while Donkey Kong Country, yes, it's the game that started it all for me in terms of gaming and really helped me fall in love with gaming, the game that took my love of gaming to the next level and made me just absolutely obsessed with gaming was Resident Evil 4. Again, I had been obsessed with, video games since I was a kid, playing all sorts of, like, movie tie-in games and whatnot, and, I've always been a gamer, but Resident Evil 4 is the game that took me from just, loving video games and, always wanting to play them to just being absolutely obsessed, and, like, just identifying as, like, I am a gamer, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to learn about, this is what I want to engage with. Resident Evil 4. If you know my story, you already know all this, and you know why this game is so special to me. But basically, growing up, I'm sure I speak for a lot of people when I say this. I had a really shitty childhood. Like, again, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. It's, kind of like a cliche trope at this point. Like, oh man, shit sucked for me growing up. But that's how it was, I had a pretty rough childhood, both my parents were addicts, I was abused growing up, unfortunately, and, my parents were always fighting, glass getting smashed, doors getting slammed, people storming out the house. It was just a messy time to be alive, to say the least, for me, but Resident Evil 4 was there for me through all of this. And, it didn't matter whether we're talking about the fights leading up to the divorce when it actually happened, or that short stint when I was living, with my dad for a couple of months until he, like, ditched me, and, that was, like, a whole thing. Resident Evil 4 was there for me through all of that, because even after the divorce, I had a PS2 of my dad, so I was able to play it there. And then once I ended up moving back in with my mom again, Resident Evil 4 was there for me through all that. My mom was dealing with her addictions and, hanging out with all the wrong dudes and whatnot. And then through there, up through the rest of elementary school, middle school, high school, and now today as a grown adult in my 20s, just sitting here making YouTube content, talking about video games and talking about the things I love. Yeah, Resident Evil 4's always been here for me. And in fact, I don't want to talk about this too much, but the last couple months have been a little rough for me. There's just been certain things going on that I'm not going to talk about right now. And once again, Resident Evil 4 was actually there for me. I booted it up on my PS5 and I was like, you know what, let's just go ahead, let's just run through this again. And yeah, it got me through that. It gets me through everything. And Resident Evil 4 is just, my favorite game of all time. Not just because it got me through so much, but also just because, it's an amazing game in itself. I love Resident Evil 4 so much. Leon Kennedy was always so, well, what's the word? Kind of like a role model for me, so inspirational to me. It's like, all right, if he can get through all this shit, like, what can't I get through? If he can go through everything he goes through in this game, all the near-death experiences, there's nothing that I can't get through as well. So, this game has literally saved my life before, and I love it. It's my favorite game of all time. Next up, we have another one of my favorite childhood games right here, that being Lego Batman on the PlayStation 2. I know the game also released on, like, Xbox 360 and Wii at that time, but, at that time I didn't have one of those consoles for myself yet, so I got it on PS2, but it's fine, because this was still a great version of the game, and, this is actually, like, the first game that I ever 100%ed. There was a couple of games where I came close. The Cars tie-in movie game, I came pretty close. Kung Fu Panda I might have as well, but Lego Batman was the first one where I, like, really went for it, 100% of the game, and I love this game so much. This is another one that I revisit at least once a year. It's on so many platforms, and I've played it on so many platforms at this point. I've played it on PS2, PS3, Xbox 360, Wii, PlayStation Portable. I even played, like, the DS version, which is technically, like, a different game entirely, and then I went on to play the other Lego Batman games, just other Lego games in general. I adore Lego games. If you know me, you know this. Lego games are just one of those things where it doesn't, it doesn't even matter what IP it's for, right? Like, for example, for like the Lego Lord of the Rings or Lego Hobbit, like, I know some stuff about Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, I've seen like some of the movies and whatnot. I'm not like a super fan or super knowledgeable by any means in the same way that I am about Batman. So yeah, you know, this game is just perfect to me. I've always loved Legos. I always loved Batman, so this was like the perfect blend for me. Because this was actually like the first Lego game I played. Because like, yeah, I mean, I might have played Lego Star Wars before this, but this was the first Lego game that I actually owned and played through. And then I had like, I think I got Lego Star Wars 2 or Indiana Jones after this, and then like, you know, the other ones, and kind of went from there. But yeah, fantastic game. It's also worth mentioning that part of why I love Lego Batman so much is because it's heavily, like the how do I explain it? Like the mood of the game is heavily based on Batman 89, which is my favorite superhero movie of all time. And it was actually the first superhero movie that I watched, so it was just sort of like a perfect blend right there. But that's one aspect of it as well that I wanted to talk about, and it's the fact that video games, it depends on the video game, obviously, but video games like this, for example, like this, or like the SpongeBob games, or, you know, other like, you know, cutesy games like that, it just really helps me feel like a kid again. Not necessarily in the sense of like feeling that age again, but more or less in the way of like, okay, I don't have any responsibilities right now, I don't have anything stressing me out, I don't have any bullshit going on, I don't have any family drama, I don't have any fake friend drama, I don't have any romance troubles. It's just, you know, it's nothing matters right now. I'm just playing my game, and that's that. I'm getting lost in this world. And especially when it comes to cutesy games like this, or not cutesy games, I'm sorry, Lego Batman isn't a cutesy game, but you know what I mean, more like you know, games that are meant for people of all ages, really. Whether it be this or especially like Nintendo games that we're going to get to later on, really just helps you kind of regain that sense of joy in life, you know what I mean? Speaking of which, since I just showed it already, yeah, Super Mario 3D World, this is another one of my favorite single player games that I revisit a lot, you know, between the theme song of the game where it has like all the, I don't even know what I want to call them, like I guess like saxophones and stuff for like really jazzy instruments. Do 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 do, like, oh man, it gets stuck in my head. I absolutely love Super Mario 3D World, and hot take here, I prefer the Wii U version of this game because in the Switch version, they sped up the player's movement by about 25%, I believe, and I don't know, it just kind of messes with the flow of the game in my opinion. Like, sure, it's cool to move a bit faster, but I prefer the Wii U version. That's kind of how I am with a lot of games, though. Like, if a game releases on one platform, I'm usually more likely to play it on the platform it was initially intended for. Modern games, it's a little bit different. Like, for example, if we're going from like The Last of Us Part 2 on PS4 to like Part 2 remastered on PS5, it's like, sure, I'll just play the PS5 version, higher resolution, higher frame rate, whatever. Like, you know, I've said it before, the resolutions and frame rates don't really affect my decision to play a game. Like, I don't really give a shit if the game's fun, the game's fun. But yeah, this is just one of those situations where, like, you know, still in that era where sometimes when they're bringing games from one system to the next, you know, like sometimes when they'd remaster games from 360 and put it on Xbox One or PS4, they'd mess with the art style, mess with the lighting, mess with the frame rate, mess with gameplay mechanics, and I was like, I just want to play the game the way it was meant to be played, man. Just give me that base version, 1.0 version, maybe fix some bugs if you have to, but don't start, like, tweaking art style and gameplay, and something that happened there. But anyway, I'm going off topic, way off topic. Anyway, yeah, Super Mario 3D World, similar to Lego Batman, is just one of those games that always helps me restore my inner joy and helps me smile when I can't do it myself. Next up, we got Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, and this harkens back to just some, you know, some of the stuff that I've always loved, and that being anime. I've always loved anime. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the Japanese animation art style that has always just spoken to me on a deeper level. I've always just been very drawn to it. And, you know, then you factor in, like, Dragon Ball is literally my favorite anime of all time, and yeah, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, and, like, especially more specifically, like, Budokai and Budokai Tenkaichi, and just like all those other like amazing Dragon Ball games from back in the day. You know, I've always loved these games, and it even goes beyond this, right? Like, I could have pulled some of my Naruto games off the shelf because I love Naruto as well, but I love the Xenoverse games because they literally let you relive some of the best moments from Dragon Ball history, specifically like Dragon Ball Z and Super, not as much from the original Dragon Ball, but you know, obviously you get to create your own custom character and kind of be a part of that Dragon Ball history and help make sure that the timeline goes the way that it's supposed to go. Like, literally in Xenoverse 2, it literally starts off with you, you know, like initially in the Saiyan Saga when it's Goku and Piccolo and Raditz and all that, you literally get to go there and help Goku and Piccolo fight Raditz, and it's so cool. Next up, we have Max Payne 3, and this is something I've talked about before, where for some reason in video games, I resonate the most with the middle-aged, depressed, possibly alcoholic guys in video games, whether that be like Joel from The Last of Us, Max from Max Payne, Michael from GTA 5, or just, you know, other like stoic, depressed guys, or just anybody that's kind of not necessarily nonchalant. I don't know how to explain it though, just like very, just kind of like stoic and just kind of like, you know, you can tell they've been through some shit, but they just kind of like keep fighting anyway. Like, that's the shit that I resonate with, just because, like, obviously in a lesser sense, that's kind of how I am. I've just, you know, I've dealt with a lot of shit in my life, been through a lot of shit. I don't talk about a lot of it because a lot of it's just like, you know, it's like, there's no reason to talk about it. But, you know, I still kind of keep pushing on in the metaphorical sense. But then in video games, they push on through it in the literal sense. Like, Max Payne literally had everything took from him, taken from him. And yet, he still keeps kicking ass for 3 games. I love the soundtrack during the airport fight towards the end of this game. Don't worry, there's no spoilers here. But it's so cool the way you're, like, diving around the airport. And the way the soundtrack sounds and the way that it's, like, mixed into the game and just the track itself, the way the track itself is mixed, it's so good. Next up, we got Cyberpunk 2077, and I've said it before, my favorite time for my life is the week that I spent in Night City, because this was back in 2022 when I was recovering from my eating disorder, and I was at one of the lowest points in my life. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna play Cyberpunk finally, because I played it a bit at launch. It was buggy, and you know, it just like I ended up losing my save at one point or something, I think, when I was playing on a base Xbox One. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna come back to this at a later point. And I actually ended up revisiting it on that same base Xbox One, and thankfully they patched the game quite a bit, so it was a bit easier to get through without as many bugs and glitches. Still had my save crap out at one point, but it is what it is. I got back up to where I was because I wasn't that far in the game, or I didn't lose that much progress. But Cyberpunk, where do I even begin with this game? Well, I will say I did have my heart broken by this game because I found out that Judy was a lesbian early on, and it made me sad because I wanted to romance her, but it's okay because I ended up going through like the entire game. I got like every ending. The only thing I didn't do was create like another character so I could romance Judy. I just stuck to male V, but I went through, I got every ending, beat the main story, beat all the side quests. Like, I went 110% on Cyberpunk 2077, because initially I beat the main story in like 2 or 3 days. Like, I played the game that much. But then, yeah, like I said, you know, I was really depressed because I got the really sad ending where you're like on the roof, and I was like, oh, what the hell? I don't want to end the game like that. So then I went back, got another ending, and then I was like, well, wait a minute, now I need some more. So then I went in and got every ending in the game. And Cyberpunk is just such a special game to me, whether we're talking about the aesthetic of Night City, whether we're talking about how immersive the game is, whether we're talking about, you know, the interactions between you and Johnny Silverhand, or just the romance options in the game. Like, the times in the game, some of my favorite moments from this game aren't the bombastic action. Like, you know, there's some cool set pieces, like when you're driving around, you know, I don't want to spoil anything, but at the beginning of Act 2, after you wake up and, you know, you're like shooting these, like, you know, like, again, trying to avoid spoilers here, but it's so cool, you know, the way they're like jumping on the car and everything. Ugh, I love it. But my favorite moments from Cyberpunk 2077 aren't the bombastic action, it's the quiet moments. And for me, a lot of my favorite moments in video games aren't the parts that everybody will think. Like, you know, there's one game we'll be talking about later, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, where, yeah, sure, some of my favorite moments in this game are like, you know, the one boss battle where a stranger remains playing in the background, or the final battle, and it has to be this way, is playing in the background, you're like fighting and everything, and doing all the crazy combos and parries and shit. Like, dude, it's so fucking visceral, it's so badass. But my favorite moments in games always end up being the quiet moments, the slower moments. The ending of Spider-Man 2018, or in Cyberpunk, the times when you and Pan Am are like out in the desert and you hole up in this one, but it's like a shack or some kind, or like a small little like house or hut or whatever, and you guys are just like chilling on the couch and she kind of just like rests her head on you or whatever. Like, those are the moments that stick with me. Or like the one time when you're doing this one side quest and there's this one character that's like a cop, and you guys are like sitting there at the end kind of like just watching the sunset, drinking beers together. Like, those are the parts of Cyberpunk 2077 that resonate with me the most, just like the slower moments, which, you know, I don't know if that says anything about me. Obviously, I love the bombastic action as well. It's like part of why I even played the game to begin with, but I always just love falling in love with characters, you know, getting those deeper interactions. It probably also just says something about how I am as a human too, because, you know, I've said this before, I don't, you know, really have any like friends or family in real life or anything. It's really just me on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, you know, I wake up, I make these videos, and then I'm usually just kind of keeping to myself for the rest of the day. You know, I literally haven't left my house in like 7 months. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. It's like, yeah, sure, I've had some thought about maybe putting myself out there one day, maybe trying to make some friends or delve into something deeper, but every time I think about it, I don't know, I don't really have the drive for all that. I'm happy living the way I am right now, you know, I feel safer this way, and, you know, it's... So, but it is one of those things where like video games do kind of help me get my fix of like, oh, you know, I still get to build these connections, and it still, you know, keeps me happy and just gives me stuff to remember and reflect on. I just love falling in love with and connecting to video game characters and just, you know, getting lost in those worlds, you know what I mean? I've also said this before too, where I spend as much of my time in the physical world trying to escape into the digital one, or, you know, more specifically video game worlds, just because that's where I'm happiest. I'm not really happy with the real world usually. I just kind of prefer to, I mean, like, my real life is fine, you know, it is what it is, but I'm happier when I'm in video game worlds. Speaking of which, Spider-Man 2018, the ultimate, you know, power fantasy of swinging through New York City, being free, beating up bad guys, and the story in this game, absolutely broke my heart by the end of it. And once again, as much as I love the bombastic moments in this game or the final battle in this game, some of my favorite moments are the little moments between Peter and MJ where, you know, he's like, you know, leaving the apartment or whatever, you know, he's all like suited up and he just like stops and looks at MJ, or that like one part where like him and MJ are at that cafe or whatever. Like, those are some of my favorite parts in this game. Oh, the DLCs for this game were really freaking awesome too. Those were a lot of fun. Next up, we got Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. This is one of those games that I feel like everybody needs to play at least once in their life. It's basically, okay, what if you were a badass, crazy fast, flying, sword-flinging anime ninja, but you were actually able to live through that fantasy with a badass soundtrack backing you all the way? That's Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Love that game to death. Sorry, I'm just trying to speed up through this because we do have a couple games to go yet, so I don't want to, you know, drag this out for too long. But next up, we got Elden Ring, and this actually ties into another game, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab it right now. That being Dark Souls. I would also like to go grab Demon Souls, but I had it in only a Greatest Hits case, and I do not like Greatest Hits cases. In fact, I'm still pretty salty that my only copy of Resident Evil 4 there on the bottom is a Greatest Hits case. Still gotta get that Black Label at some point. Even though I already also own that game on many other platforms, we won't talk about that. Anyway, Dark Souls and Elden Ring. I've always loved Souls games just because they are challenging, they are brutal, but they are fair. Less so with Dark Souls 1. Like, this game is fair. I'm just saying that it's not really that challenging. Like, when you play for the first time, sure, it can be a little hard, but after that, like, I don't know, you kind of, like, learn how to not suck at the game. So Dark Souls 1, I definitely feel like game journalists, it was just one of those situations where most game journalists are just really bad at games, so they made the difficulty out to be a lot worse than it was, because this game really isn't that hard. But Elden Ring, yeah, I will say there's definitely a couple bosses in here, especially in Shadow of the Erdtree, that can kind of rock your shit if you're not careful, namely like Millennia and some of the later game bosses. But again, none of them are really too bad as long as you leveled up enough. But again, I love that prospect of you have to respect the game, you know, because if you don't respect the game, if you just try to rush through it, you know, you're gonna get your ass handed to you. I've also loved the atmosphere in Souls games, especially like Dark Souls 1 when you're sitting at Firelink Shrine, or, you know, Dark Souls 2 when you're sitting at Majula, or Elden Ring when you're at the Round Table Hole just kind of running around, leveling up your weapons, and you go back out to Limgrave or the other, you know, environments of the game, you're running around on Torrent, and Melina. I simp heavily for Melina. Next up, we have another example of two games that I can easily bundle together, those being The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us, these games are very special, and they're games that it's better to know less about them before you play them, just because they are so special, and they truly are experiences that you can only experience for the first time once. Going through these games completely blind is the way to do it. And I know that can be kind of hard some, you know, nowadays, because a lot of things just end up kind of getting spoiled online, which kind of sucks. But even if you had it spoiled for you, I recommend playing through these games at least once. You know, these games have had such a profound impact on me. The Last of Us 1, it taught me that even for a guy like me, where I've been through a lot of shit, I've had my trust broken time and time again, and it's really hard for me to trust anybody, like, at all. Even my own family, I don't really trust, to be honest. I don't really trust anybody. Only person, I mean, I don't even trust myself, you know? But The Last of Us taught me that, you know, even after all that, you know, it's okay occasionally to maybe let somebody back in, you know, maybe learn to love again, maybe learn to trust again. Am I there myself? If I'm being honest, not really. Will I ever be there? Maybe. But again, The Last of Us kind of, you know, at least got that, got the circuits, got the gears turned into my, sorry, I've been talking for a little while, my brain's starting to give out. I kind of got the gears turned to like, hey, you know, maybe it would be okay one day, but for right now, you know, I'm not necessarily there. But The Last of Us, just such a special game. Between the story, the characters, I love the relationship between Ellie and Joel. The opening to this game makes me cry every single time that I play it, and yeah, The Last of Us, just a fantastic game. And then The Last of Us Part 2, I've talked about this before as well, where I used to be the kind of guy where I'd kind of be petty sometimes, try to get back to people that did me wrong, but then playing this game, you know, it really helped engrave the message in my head that revenge is just kind of pointless, you know, getting back at somebody. At that point, you're kind of just, I don't know, you're just kind of playing ping pong at that point, you know? Like, you do something, somebody does something petty, you try to get revenge on them, but then you're just being just as petty. Revenge doesn't get anybody anywhere at the end of the day. The older I've gotten, the more I've learned it's better to just forgive, let go, and move on, you know what I mean? Because revenge at the end of the day doesn't get anybody anywhere. Being petty doesn't get anybody anywhere. You know, you just gotta learn to respect yourself, acknowledge that sometimes people suck, and then you just gotta kind of keep rolling with your life, you know what I mean? Next up, this is going to be a really confusing one, because everybody's gonna see it and be like, what the hell, that is a multiplayer game. But, hear me out. Black Ops 6. Now, I know, you're gonna be like, well, what the hell, that's a multiplayer game, what are you talking about, Nathan? I'm more specifically talking about like the campaign in this game because I actually just finally played it recently. You know, I usually play Call of Duty campaigns when they first come out, but I just, you know, I was playing the multiplayer, trying to get level 1000. I'm almost there, by the way. I'm like level 903. I would have hit it back in like season 3, but I just, you know, stopped. I didn't like stop playing the game. I just started playing it a little bit less because I was just playing other single player games, playing some other multiplayer games, just kind of catching up on some other stuff I had missed since I played nothing but that game, nothing but Black Ops 6 since it had released for, you know, months on end. But anyway, I just recently got around to playing through the campaign, and it was very nice for me because for the last like 4 months or so, I haven't gotten to play a lot of single player games. You know, I've just, I haven't had as much time. I've been working a lot. I've been playing a lot of other like multiplayer games, had some other just complicated, stupid bullshit life stuff going on in my life. And I finally, you know, sat down, played through the Black Ops 6 campaign. And it was a nice reminder of why I've always preferred single player games. It was like, oh man, I'm not, you know, I felt so free. My brain felt like it could finally turn off. I wasn't in a multiplayer environment, you know, like COD or Fortnite or any other game or anything. It was just me and the video game and the story and the characters, and I just felt immediately immersed into the world, immediately, you know, fell in love with the characters and the story and everything. And yeah, it was just that nice reminder, like, man, this is what I've been missing. This is probably part of why I've been feeling so empty and lifeless for the last couple months, because I haven't had my single player game fix, and playing through this game again was a really nice reminder of that. And yeah, I'm really excited to get back on my single player game kick here. You know, I'm starting to strike a bit of a better work-life balance. It's just been a lot, right? I've been having to work for the channel, doing other stuff that I do for money, and then, you know, also working on this album that I've been working on. So I just, you know, time has been something that has been escaping me lately, to say the least. But again, trying to strike a bit of a healthier balance lately, and this game really helped reel me back. I love Black Ops 6 a lot, man. This is, you know, this is a really controversial opinion of mine, but I think Black Ops 6 is an S-tier Call of Duty, and I know there's going to be the chronically online degenerate moron stuck in the internet echo chamber that'll say, because that's what they do. They just hate on everything for no reason. But if you take a step back and look at this game on all aspects, the campaign, the multiplayer, the zombies, I mean, look at the multiplayer. It's really well polished. There's a great map pool. Even the maps at launch are pretty good. And then even since then, you know, we've had a lot of great remakes. And you look at all the weapons, the weapon balancing is really good. The Omni movement is so clean and so fluid in this game. And like, going back to other Call of Duties, like, obviously there's nothing wrong with going back to the other Call of Duties, but I do have to say, Omni movement has just given me such a whole different perspective of movement in first-person shooters because of how smooth and fluent it is. Like, it's truly, like, revolutionary in my opinion. It just feels so good to play. It feels really smooth. And then, but yeah, you know, between the weapons, weapon balancing, the movement, and then like the camo grind in the game, the progression in the game is really satisfying to go for, going through the prestiges. And then you look at the zombies, and I mean, the zombies is really good all around too. I know the Tomb was a bit of a controversial map when it released, but you know, it is what it is. Just people online being people online. I really enjoyed the story in Black Ops 6 Zombies. I enjoyed playing through Warzone. You know, Verdansk's coming back. I know that's technically not a part of Black Ops 6, but it still happened during this game's life cycle. You know, I love Black Ops 6, man. This game did a lot for me, and I've also been once again recovering from an eating disorder for like the last 7 months now, so this game has been here for me through all of that, so I obviously have like a boosted level of love for this game. And yeah, I love this game a lot. Getting down to the last couple games here, and these start to touch on some other, you know, like genres of games that I enjoy. I wish I had some other games on deck, like Ocarina of Time, for example. Yeah, I forget if I said that earlier, but you know, because that's like another one of my games that I go to when I'm just in need of a cozy game, kind of, you know, like a comfort game to help me feel better. Another example of that would be Tetris Effect. I know that probably sounds funny. It's like, what, Tetris? But no, dude, Tetris Effect is one of those games where, you know, it's pretty short. You can beat it in like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. But it's a very comforting game, and every time that I'm feeling sad or anxious or anything like that, it kind of helps ground me, helps reel me back in, because it's very music oriented. I'm a music lover. Music is one of those things where, you know, unless I'm playing a video game, I have music on 24/7 just because I have really bad OCD and ADHD, so my brain is always working overtime. So music kind of helps ground me, helps drown out the thoughts, helps drown out the depression, the anxiety, and all the other just racing thoughts from my other disorders. But anyway, another cozy game that I love is Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life, and just any cozy game like this. And you're probably looking at it like, Nathan, but the game is sealed. And that's because I also already have it digitally on PS5. You know, it's just, I'm a physical collector at the end of the day, so even though, yes, I already have a way to play it on PS5, you know, I still just want to have, like, you know, a physical version of the game, just because, again, I'm a physical collector. I like actually owning my games, because just in case you're new around here, or just in case you're new to gaming in general, or unfamiliar with some of this stuff, when you buy games digitally, you don't actually own them, you just own a license to them, and I've learned that the hard way multiple times. My Xbox account was hacked a couple months ago, and the thousands of dollars that I'd spent on digital games were just kind of poof. I couldn't access them for a while. Granted, I've been a physical collector my entire life, so of course it wasn't that big of a loss. I still had all the games that I really wanted to play physically, but the fact that I still lost my account and lost all the games and DLCs I had still sucked. But anyway, Story Seasons, A Wonderful Life, and other cozy games of this nature. Another underrated cozy game of mine that I love is Lake. It's this game where you play as a mail delivery driver, and you know, you're just like delivering packages, connecting with the community, and talking to people and stuff like that. And I've just always loved that game. It's really cozy, really nice. I really love the vibes of that game. But I just love games like this because unlike some other games, like, you know, some of the more action-oriented games like we talked about before, in these games you're really just able to escape to a whole other world and slip into a cozy vibe, right? There's no intense action. There's no super in-depth romance plots. I mean, sometimes there kind of is if you're playing like Stardew Valley or something where you're like trying to romance certain characters, whatever. But, you know, in a game like this, you're more or less just, you know, you're running your farm, you're doing your thing, and yeah, there's some romance elements in this game technically. But, you know, it's very laid back. It's very zen-like. You're just playing your game, doing your thing, running your farm, taking care of animals. You know, in some cozy games like this, you can kind of like customize things like Disney Dreamlight Valley, for example, which is a really great cozy game. You know, obviously you got Animal Crossing, like another no-go-to cozy game. And yeah, I love cozy games like this. Next up, we got Grand Theft Auto 4. I don't know why I said it like that, but yes, it's probably because of Nico's accent, and I'm trying to replicate it. Anyway. Dude, I really need some sleep tonight. I've barely been sleeping lately. Grand Theft Auto 4 goes back to like things I was talking about before with like Max Payne 3, where obviously Nico isn't really like middle-aged per se, but he's still just like a stoic dude that's been through a lot of shit, so now he shoots people in the face, and you know, it's like a really cool underdog story. You know, he comes to America, basically starts out with nothing, then he like climbs his way up the criminal ranks. I've always loved stories like that, you know, stories like this, or like in like Scarface or The Godfather or something, where you just, you know, see people climb up the ranks and, you know, do this crazy shit. I love stuff like that. But, yeah, you know, GTA 4 is another game where I gotta say, like, you know, everybody should play through the story in this game at least once. It's a fantastic game, fantastic story. Love this game so much. Also, this is one thing that I always point out. Whether you play the game on PS3 or Xbox 360, the online servers are still online, which is funny. I've always thought it's funny how the online servers for GTA 4 on those consoles outlasted the GTA 5 servers, probably just because that one's more in-depth, and I believe, if I had to guess, it's probably because the GTA 5 servers ran off of Rockstar servers, like dedicated servers, whereas the GTA 4 ones are probably peer-to-peer, if I had to guess. Just because that game released in 2008 and dedicated servers weren't as common in the console scene, but that's my only guess. Anyway, the final game I want to talk about here is another controversial one, but I don't care because it's one of my favorite games of all time. I love this game to death, and I wish I mean, I have a couple other physical games of this franchise, that being Final Fantasy 15. I know it's a really controversial one, but hear me out. Because, you know, obviously if there was like another one I could point to, it would be like Final Fantasy 7, or more specifically like Final Fantasy 7 Remake and Rebirth and whatnot. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore and love the original Final Fantasy 7, but there's just something about the way that Remake and Rebirth so far have taken that story and padded it out and really expanded every aspect of it to just, you know, you're really there with the characters for that entire story. And again, you were there with the characters for the entire story in the original, but the way that it's just like so fleshed out in the remakes, I absolutely love and adore it. But unfortunately, I don't have those games physically at the moment. But one of the notable and more recent entries that I do have outside of like, I don't have as many physical Final Fantasy games. I got like 10 and 12, 13 as well. I gotta get some of the other ones physically yet. But yeah, Final Fantasy 15, this is not only one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, but it's also just one of my favorite games of all time. I just love the relationship between these four guys, and I also love like the romance plot between Noctis and Lunafreya and the way that that all plays out. And there are some amazing set pieces in this game, like the giant battles against the, well, giants, especially that one that takes place in the sea against that Leviathan. Dude, the soundtrack during that part goes absolutely crazy. It is insane. But I love this game so much. You know, there's also like the Royal Edition that exists, which kind of like expands some parts of the games and flesh out some parts that, you know, some people kind of complain about online. Again, chronically online, people doing what they do best and complaining about everything. But me personally, you know, I've always just stuck to the vanilla version of the game. Don't get me wrong, the Royal Edition's great, but I honestly thought the vanilla version was fine as it is. I love this game to death. It's one of my favorite games. And here's my piece of advice for the day for anybody watching this video. If you've ever been turned off from playing a game or haven't played a game just because you heard it didn't get good reception online, don't listen to the fucking idiots online, dude. Just go play the video game. At least try for yourself. Because Final Fantasy 15 is one of those games where, you know, everybody else will be like, oh yeah, but you should probably just go play like 7 or 10 or 9 or 8 or, you know, like one of those other ones, or even maybe some of the original ones like 3 or 6. But you'd be missing out on so many amazing gaming experiences if you listen to the advice of these chronically online degenerate morons. Like seriously, I will always be here talking about and hyping up Final Fantasy 15. Like even if you can't get the Royal Edition, even if you can just get the Vanilla Edition, again, this game is freaking fantastic. I love it. But anyway, these are just some single player games that I wanted to talk about. And you probably read the title and it was like, oh, why I love single player games. And then I kind of just went on a tangent talking about a bunch of other games. You'd probably be like, okay, where's this video really going though? You're just talking about a bunch of different games. And that's the point. Me talking about all these games is the point of this video. Because each one of these games reflects a different side of me, a different thing that I look for in video games. And while yes, again, this isn't a comprehensive list of like every game that's had an impact on me, or a comprehensive list of like things that I look for in a game, this is just a general random selection of games from my collection that have had a profound impact on me, that I love dearly, and help reflect why I love single player games so much. And that really just comes down to this. As I said before, I spend as much time in the physical world trying to escape into the digital one. And single player games, more than any other kind of game, especially more than multiplayer games, really help me do that. I'm able to forget about everything else. I'm able to forget about real life drama. I'm able to forget about my problems. And I'm able to just escape into a world that I actually want to be in. You know what I mean? And furthermore, you know, when you layer on the fact that, you know, a lot of these games, like for example, Final Fantasy 15 or Grand Theft Auto 4 or The Last of Us or whatever, also have like really lovable characters and great character stories and stories in general, you know, gives you something to latch on to, gives you something to get attached to. It's really helpful for somebody like me. And yeah, you know, just having all these amazing experiences to get lost into. It's my favorite thing in the world. But anyway, yeah, I've been yapping for like almost an hour at this point. I don't know how long the video is going to be after editing. I can feel my brain frying out. I haven't been talking a lot lately, IRL, because I haven't been, like, when I'm making videos, my videos haven't been able to be as long because I've just had a lot of other things to do behind the scenes. And then, like, yeah, you know, I've been spending even more time alone lately, so, man, yeah, well, my brain. Also, just one final note, if I made anybody mad with any of my possibly controversial opinions of games in this video, good. That just means that you're one of the chronically online degenerate morons that I was pointing out when I was saying it anyway. I don't like calling people out, I don't like bullying people, but if you're gonna be that stupid, then somebody's got to call you out on it. I'm here for a good time, not a long time, and if I piss somebody off in the process, boo-hoo. But anyway, as always, a massive shout out to the Patrons, and to remember to get all you in the low ball tier, and an even bigger shout out to the ball tier, the last king, and Big Daddy Matty, and the biggest shout out to on the G tier, random and some cheese go. Thank you guys so much, guys, the little legends. I love you. Good on you, Dodaki, arigatou gozaimasu. Have an amazing day, stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.